This box returns $100 for every dollar invested, saves lives, and saves the planet. So that's it for me. Any questions? So I don't have time to talk about the portfolio of IP in the box, but I'd like to talk today about how a tiny little pre-revenue company like STAX can scale enough to make a 1% dent in climate change. Because we know that tiny little companies clearly never amount to anything. So what's the problem? The problem is there's trillions of dollars of pre-existing assets that will otherwise cause air pollution and climate change for decades into the future. The impact to the United States alone will be hundreds of billions of dollars by 2090. So what's the solution to STAX? Well, this is an industrial problem, and it requires an industrial solution, but industrial companies are still stuck in the industrial age. But we're in the tech age today, but we need more than a software app. We need a tech approach to an industrial problem. So today I'd like to kind of flip this around, and how would an industrial company approach a tech product? So what they would do is they would write a specification. They'd ask, well, how big do you want the screen? Do you want touch screen? What kind of software can we write from scratch and hard code on your phone? Do you want buttons, camera, etc.? And then we'd write a specification. It would take about a year. And after that, we'd have our crack team of engineers work a year on it to make the my phone of your dream. Would then send it to your house in pieces. We'd set up a local office. We'd assemble it at your home over the next 4 years. And it'd have some bugs, so we'd spend another 2 years debugging it. And then you'd have a perfectly mediocre my phone, and it only cost $1 billion and took 10 years. So good idea, right? And that's a horrible idea, but that's exactly what industrial companies do today. But they make a lot of money doing it. But it's time for a disruption in this field. So enter the STAX Box Universal Module. This box, the key is to make one box that can handle any emission source. This box is made in the form of a standard shipping container. So we can ship it via container truck, container train, or container ship to anywhere in the world. And we can redeploy it as well, so no more stranded assets. The STAX box, like I said, can be connected to anything. We can connect it to ocean-going vessels, which is actually the hardest, and that's what we are already best at the world in. So now we can do anything. We can do backup gensets for data centers. We can do industrial facilities and power generation. So the STAX box removes nearly 100% of pollutants and also captures CO2, which is a valuable product. And so what happens in 20 or 30 years? We've built 30,000 units, and clean tech has done its job. But how many think that by that time we've actually met our climate goals? Probably not. We're probably going to have to pull carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So as these sources do get cleaner, we now have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to redeploy these now paid-for STAX boxes. And for example, we could use renewable fuels, which is a combination of sunlight and atmospheric CO2. We can use that to generate useful electricity and then capture that carbon. The end result is we're capturing atmospheric carbon, so we can actually pull it from the atmosphere using paid-for assets much cheaper than anybody else can do. Our goal is about 30,000 units. That's 500 million tons per year, and that is 1% of climate change. So let's stick with let's say we do not do 30,000 units. Let's say we do a horrible job and only do 17 units. So what would that look like? So in the worst case situation, 17 units in year 5 is still EBITDA exceeding $100 million. And so that's a very good valuation at that point. This is emission reduction as a service, so this service will go on for 20 years. So just a few accomplishments. So one is just being here today. This is fantastic. We have the next generation STAX Maritime designed, ready to go. No R&D required. The LA ports had enough confidence in us to give us a $1 million grant. The CO2 tech, a 5 megawatt version, has been piloted at a coal plant, and we have 9 patent applications so far. Have a fantastic team in place, a great technology in place, ready to go. And so if you're a company that wants to lose money, kill people, and destroy the planet, we are not the company for you, but otherwise, we'd like to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Couple of questions.
Okay, so I'm having a little trouble understanding exactly what you do.
Okay.
The box connects to emission sources and cleans them, or does
That's
something
right.
else?
It's a universal box that can attach to any emission source out there that's pre-existing. We're not going to enable old technologies, but we're going to go and clean up the technologies that are there already. And this is an example. This is a system I designed and built. This is a barge that comes alongside an ocean-going vessel at berth, has a 250-foot robotic arm, draws the exhaust gas out of the vessel, and purifies nearly 100%. So now we have the next generation of that, which has about several hundred improvements to it. And that's where we want to go today, is to go and do the next generation of this system. So ocean-going vessels are the hardest. They use the worst fuel. It's extremely difficult, and very few can do it. And if we can do that, we can go do anything. We can do coal, natural gas, et cetera. So basically, it's a universal box. It's like the iPhone, of which there are 700 million in the world, but fortunately, there are 0 MyPhones in the world. So it's a universal approach to pollution control and climate change.
And what is the revenue model?
So the revenue model, this is emission reduction as a service. So we will lease a box or place a box in service. We charge by the hour, and then just keep on going, and as long as that asset is still in existence. It's actually a money-making approach. It's actually, it makes enough money so that we can actually project finance every single system from now on. And that means the financial model is just as important as the technical approach, because that'll allow us to scale to where we want to scale to. The CO2 product is actually a valuable product, and it's becoming more valuable as we find out what kind of situation we're in.
Is there government regulation that's forcing people to buy your product?
There is on the barge I just showed you. There's a demand for 33 systems that's documented by California Air Resources Board for just that tiny narrow application. So I've been doing this 15 years. I'm the pioneer in the industry, and so if we only did half of that, or 17 units, we're doing pretty good. And demand is always increasing in regulation, and demand is always going to be increasing for carbon capture. So our carbon capture is about 25% of the cost of the incumbent technology, and that just switches the economics completely, and it makes it very economic to do carbon capture.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.